The void was quiet in Sector 47B. At least it was supposed to be. Captain Ral Vesh of the Trivarn Confederacy sat in the command chair of the patrol cruiser Varith's Spear. His long, narrow fingers tapped against the armrest as he scanned the holographic display in front of him. The patrol had been routine for weeks: border checks, cargo inspections, and the occasional pirate chase. Nothing worth telling stories about. But now, something was different. "Captain," said Sensor Officer Lura Van, her crest feathers trembling, in unease, "we have an object on long-range scan. Very large, no transponder." Ralvesh turned his head. "How large?" Lura Van's eyes narrowed as she studied the readings. "Larger than any freighter on record. Length, at least 3 kilometers." The bridge went silent. Even the low hum of the ship's systems seemed to fade for a moment. A ship that size was no ordinary civilian vessel. Only the most powerful empires could build something that massive, and the Trivarn knew every ship class in the region. This was not one of them. "Course?" Ralvesh asked. "Drifting," Lura Van replied. "Minimal rotation, no active drive emissions." The captain considered this. A derelict, perhaps? Or a trap? Pirates sometimes used abandoned ships to lure in rescuers, but pirates didn't have vessels this size. "Bring us to intercept," he ordered. "Maintain 20,000 kilometers distance." The helmsman acknowledged with a click of his tongue, and Varith's spear angled toward the object. Outside, stars slid past like scattered gems, growing sharper as they approached. Minutes passed. The massive shape on the sensors began to resolve into clearer form. The alien vessel, or whatever it was, had a long, dark hull that swallowed light. Its surface was smooth in some places, jagged in others, as if it had been patched or rebuilt over centuries. There were no visible windows, no glowing engine ports, and no markings. It looked dead. It looked ancient, and it looked dangerous. "Open. A channel," Ralvesh said. Lura Van hesitated, then nodded. "Channel open, Captain." Ralvesh leaned forward, speaking clearly. "Unidentified vessel. This is Captain Ralvesh of the Trivarn Confederacy Navy. State your identity and purpose. You are in monitored space." The words carried into the void. Silence followed. The crew waited. 10 seconds. 20. A full minute. "Send again," Ralvesh ordered. They did. Still nothing. He began to feel a strange weight in his chest. Not fear, exactly, but an instinctive pressure that told him something about this was wrong. "Captain," Lura Van said quietly, "should we leave?" Before he could answer, the comms console chirped. A voice came through, low, steady, and speaking in perfect galactic standard. "This is Earth Command. Identify yourself." Every head on the bridge turned toward the speakers. Ralvesh frowned. The voice was unlike any he had heard before, deep, resonant, and carrying a tone that suggested absolute authority. But the words, "Earth Command?" He looked at his officers. "Does anyone know of such a place?" They shook their heads. Lura Van quickly tapped at her console, searching the Confederacy's stellar maps. "Negative, Captain. No planet or polity named Earth is in our database. Closest matches are primitive biospheres, none warp-capable." The voice came. Again, sharper this time. "Trivarn vessel, you have entered a restricted zone. State your purpose immediately." Ralvesh's mouth felt dry. "This is a patrol mission. We detected your vessel and hailed to offer assistance." A pause. Then, "Assistance not required. Recommend you alter course away from this zone." The channel closed without warning. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Ralvesh's mind raced. Whoever or whatever was aboard that ship had responded with the confidence of a power that owned this space. And yet, no record of them existed. "Captain," Lura Van said slowly, I'm detecting a change in the vessel's movement." Ralvesh looked at the display. The massive ship, which had been drifting, was now moving, directly toward them. "How fast?" he asked. "Too fast," the helmsman muttered. "Acceleration beyond known propulsion standards. No drive plume. Detected." The alien ship glided closer, but its movement was not like normal spacecraft. There was no visible thrust, no energy flare, only the steady, terrifying approach of something impossibly advanced. "Shields to full," Ralvesh ordered. "Hold position. I want full scans of that vessel." The results came back almost instantly, and they made no sense. The hull was composed of alloys unknown to Confederacy science. The density readings suggested armor thick enough to shrug off heavy bombardment, and deep inside the ship, something pulsed with enormous energy, though not in any reactor pattern. "They recognized." "Captain," Luravan said, her voice almost a whisper. "If this is a warship, we are already dead." Ralvesh ignored the comment, though his own thoughts mirrored her fear. "Signal command. Encrypted channel. Transmit full sensor logs." As the data burst went out, a smaller ping arrived from the mysterious vessel, encrypted, but not in any known format. The Trivarn's best decryption programs couldn't even read the first byte. The crew worked in tense silence as the distance closed. Through the main view screen, the unidentified ship finally came into visual range. It was colossal. Even from 20,000 kilometers away, its size dwarfed Varith's spear. The hull stretched on, its angles sharp yet elegant, built for both beauty and menace. Weapon ports dotted its surface. Long, silent cannons, missile bays the size of cargo ships, and strange barrel-like structures unlike any weapon the Trivarn had ever seen. And yet, there were no lights. The entire vessel seemed to drink in starlight, as if it wanted to remain a shadow even while standing in plain sight. Ralvesh remembered old spacer tales, legends told in dark taverns by long-haul traders. They spoke of a race called Deathworlders, creatures, from a hostile, violent planet who once walked among the stars, only to vanish centuries ago after some great betrayal. Most dismissed the stories as fantasy. Now, staring at the ship, Ralvesh was no longer sure. The comm crackled again. "Trivarn vessel, last warning. Leave this zone." Ralvesh took a slow breath. "This is Captain Ralvesh. We do not mean to intrude. Who exactly are you?" There was a pause long enough for the crew to think the call had ended. Then the voice spoke, calm but with an edge that cut straight through the air. "We are the guardians of Earth, and you have no idea what you have found." The channel closed. Outside, the dark giant shifted, its bow turning away as if preparing to depart. But before it did, a ripple shimmered across the void, space itself bending. For a heartbeat, Ralvesh thought it was a distortion in the view screen. Then the distortion peeled away to reveal another ship, identical in design, equally massive. For a long moment, no one on the bridge of Varith's spear moved. They simply stared. The second massive vessel hung in the void like a shadow made solid. No drive glow, no running lights, no registration markings. Yet it felt alive, watching them. Captain Ralvesh's mind churned. One enormous ship had been shocking enough. Two meant this was no accident. Whoever these Earth Command people were, they had numbers, and maybe more waiting in the dark. "Range to the second vessel?" he asked. 35,000 kilometers, Luravan replied softly. "It's holding position, but weapons are locked on us." The statement made every officer tense. In Trivarn military protocol, locking weapons was an open act of threat. Against a normal opponent, Ralvesh would have ordered an immediate defensive maneuver. But here, against ships this size and unknown technology, any sudden move could be a death sentence. The first giant ship sent another transmission, short, clipped, and carrying the same deep voice as before. "Trivarn vessel. Your presence is noted. State your exact mission parameters and transmit your identification codes. Ralvesh exchanged a glance with Lura Van. Send our standard Navy credentials, he ordered. And keep the comms open, the fee. Data went out. The reply came within seconds. Credentials accepted. Patrol vessel Varith's Spear. You are operating in restricted territory. Your entry will be logged. Explain your deviation from patrol route. Ralvesh hesitated. We detected your vessel on our long-range scan. As per Confederacy regulations, we approached to determine if you required assistance. A long pause followed. Then, assistance is not required. This sector is under the protection of the Terran Defense Network. No further patrols are authorized here. The term Terran Defense Network meant nothing to the captain or his crew. Captain, murmured Tactical Officer Sarak Toll. We are picking up a faint signal coming from the first vessel. Not a distress beacon. More like a warning pulse. Very low frequency. Ralvesh frowned. Translate? Sarak Toll shook his head. Not in any known code, but it's directed away from us. Deeper into the sector. The idea chilled the bridge. The warning wasn't for them. It was for someone else. Helm, Ralvesh ordered. Hold our current position. Do not provoke them. I want detailed scans, full spectrum. The scans began, but the results made less sense the more they came in. The hull plating registered as a hybrid of multiple metals, some similar to known alloys but others entirely new. Its armor density was greater than anything in Confederacy records, possibly impervious to standard plasma or particle fire. The energy readings were enormous but tightly contained, as if the reactors were buried deep inside and shielded beyond detection. Luravan added, their life support systems are different. I can't get a full read, but the atmosphere composition is almost toxic to us, which meant these humans were biologically distinct from most known species, possibly adapted to extreme environments. The comm crackled again. Trevarn vessel, stand by for close approach. Do not adjust position. Ralvesh stiffened. Close approach, and then they saw it. From the belly of the first massive ship, a smaller craft emerged, though even smaller was relative. This shuttle was the size of a destroyer, with sleek, black armor and strange wing-like protrusions. It moved without visible thrusters, gliding toward Varith's Spear in eerie silence. Tactical alarms blipped softly, automatic targeting systems trying to lock on but failing. The shuttle's profile shifted constantly, as if it was cloaked. In a light-bending field, Luravan's voice was tight. Captain, I believe they're coming to inspect us. Ralvesh considered his options. Running was impossible. They'd be vaporized before clearing 10 kilometers. Fighting would be suicide, so he did the only thing left. Stand by for contact. Keep weapons offline. I want every transmission recorded. The shuttle stopped 5 kilometers off their bow. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a narrow beam comm opened, carrying Admiral Cole's voice. Captain Ralvesh, you will prepare to receive an inspection team. You will not transmit any information about this meeting until authorized. Do you understand? Ralvesh forced his voice to remain calm. Under Confederacy law, this is not Confederacy space, Cole cut in. Do you understand? The silence on the bridge was heavy. Finally, Ralvesh said, Understood. Stand by, Cole said, and the channel closed. Ralvesh exhaled slowly. His crew exchanged nervous glances. The unspoken thought was clear. This was no longer just a simple patrol encounter. This was an intrusion into the territory of a hidden power. The inspection team arrived within minutes. 4 armored figures emerged from the shuttle, each wearing a bulky exosuit painted matte black. Their helmets were smooth with no visible visor, and each carried a weapon that looked far more advanced than anything in the Trivarn arsenal. They moved with calm precision, boarding Varith's Spear without hesitation. Ralvesh met them at the airlock. The lead figure stepped forward. The voice that came from the suit was filtered, but still carried authority. Captain Ralvesh, by order of Earth Command, your vessel will be scanned for tracking devices, signal relays, and unauthorized surveillance equipment. You will cooperate fully. The captain nodded stiffly. Of course. The humans moved through the ship with efficient speed, scanning every compartment. They ignored curious stares from Trivarn crew, focusing only on their task. In less than 20 minutes, they returned to the airlock. Inspection complete. No violations detected. You will depart immediately, the lead said. Ralvesh hesitated. Before we go, may I ask, what is Earth? The visor turned toward him, silent for a moment. Then, a place you will never find on your maps. With that, the humans stepped back into their shuttle. Seconds later, it detached and glided back to the massive warship. On the bridge, Ralvesh watched as both giant vessels slowly turned away, moving deeper into the restricted zone. Within moments, they were gone, vanishing into a shimmer of distorted space. The crew sat in stunned quiet. Finally, Luravan spoke. Captain, I've heard stories, old trader legends, about a world where everything on the surface wants to kill you. A death world, they called it. The beings who lived there were fierce, adaptable, dangerous. They said those people left the galaxy centuries ago after some betrayal. Ralvesh's mind replayed the encounter, the ships, the armor, the voice. Perhaps those were just stories. Or perhaps they had just met the Deathworlders. Set course for command, Ralvesh said. His voice was firm now. We have much to report. As Varith's spear turned away from the sector, the captain couldn't shake the feeling that their small encounter had just brushed against the edge of something vast and dangerous. Far behind them, in the deep shadows of space, Admiral Cole's voice echoed on a private channel. Earth Command to all stations. First contact re-established. Maintain surveillance. Do not engage unless provoked. The Terran Defense Network came alive in silent readiness. The journey back to Trivarn space was tense. Captain Ralvesh sat in silence for most of the trip, his eyes fixed on the stars outside the viewport. The crew spoke only when necessary, as if their words might somehow draw the attention of the ships they had just left behind. Every time the sensors flickered with a stray signal, hearts tightened, half expecting one of those massive black warships to reappear. But the readings faded, and space stayed empty. Finally, the Varith spear crossed back into officially charted Confederacy territory. The crew let out a collective breath, but the unease didn't fade. The report in the Confederacy capital orbiting. The planet Vareth. The High Command gathered in a secure chamber. Holographic projectors filled the room with floating displays, sensor scans, still images, and the limited recordings from the encounter. Ralvesh stood before them, his posture straight, but his tone careful. He described the events exactly as they happened, leaving nothing out. The unidentified massive vessel, the voice claiming to be Earth Command, the second warship's sudden appearance, the inspection team in black armor, and the strange warning that this was restricted territory. When he finished, the chamber was silent. Finally, High Admiral Saren Kor leaned forward, his 4 eyes narrowing. Earth Command, we have no record of such a power. Are you certain of the words used? Certain, Ralvesh said firmly. Their standard was perfect. They spoke as though they expected to be obeyed. Another officer, Admiral Ventar, tapped a clawed finger against the table. The construction scale you describe, 3 kilometers in length, possibly more. That exceeds known Confederacy engineering. Only the core empires have anything close to that size, and none match your sensor data. Ralvesh hesitated, then said, their hull composition was unlike anything we have scanned. Weapons arrays, extensive, and their propulsion, if it can even be called that, left no standard emissions. This made the admirals exchange uneasy looks. In the galaxy, Technology was a kind of currency. If a civilization could hide their movements, cloak their power, and operate ships of that size without detection, they were a threat. Searching the archives. The Confederacy's intelligence network went to work. Teams of data analysts and historians dove into ancient records, trying to find even a whisper of Earth or Terran defense network. Most of the search returned nothing, but in a dusty corner of the archive's restricted databanks, they found fragments, half-corrupted war records from over 600 standard years ago. The records spoke of a small but ambitious member world of the Galactic Council, Earth. Location, unknown, coordinates erased. Classification, Death World Class, 7. Population, highly adaptable bipedal species called humans. The files were incomplete, but they painted a strange picture. Humanity had joined the Council late, rising quickly in influence. Then, a war had come. The records didn't specify the cause, only that the humans had been on the Council's side at first, until something changed. The last entries described a betrayal. Entire human colonies burned, the homeworld attacked, and then, nothing. Earth vanished. No refugee fleets were recorded, no wreckage found, no trace in trade logs or migration patterns. Theories, when the historians presented their findings to High Command, the chamber filled with whispers. Death Worlders, muttered Admiral Ventar. That explains the armor. That explains the weapons. Ral Vesh frowned. Death Worlders are a myth told to frighten recruits. A planet so hostile that only the strongest life survives? It sounds like a story. Perhaps, said Serencor, but these records are real enough, and you saw their ships, Captain. That is no myth. Luravan, who had been allowed to join the report session as Chief Censor Officer, spoke up hesitantly. Sir, if these humans survived for hundreds of years without being seen, then reappeared now, it means they chose to stay hidden. It means they have control over where and when they are seen. The admirals fell silent at that. It was true. Most civilizations stumbled into the public galactic stage as soon as they developed warp capability. Hiding from the rest of the galaxy for centuries? That required power, coordination, and a reason. The invitation 3 cycles after the meeting, Ralvesh received an encrypted message aboard the Varith's Spear. It wasn't sent through Confederacy channels. It simply appeared in the ship's comm buffer, bypassing every security filter. The message was short. Captain Ralvesh, you will meet us. Bring no escorts. Sector coordinates attached. Admiral Cole, Earth Command Ralvesh read it twice, then again. The attached coordinates were inside the same restricted zone where they, had first encountered the Terran ships. The High Command debated for hours whether to send him. Some called it a trap. Others said it was the first step toward diplomacy, or at least intelligence gathering. In the end, the decision was made. Ralvesh would go. The approach Varith's Spear entered the restricted zone alone. No escorts, no surveillance drones, just the ship, its captain, and a crew that trusted him more than they trusted safety regulations. The sector looked empty at first. Stars shone coldly in the black. But Ralvesh knew better now. Sure enough, less than 10 minutes into the zone, the space ahead shimmered. A colossal silhouette emerged, one of the black warships from before. A channel opened without him requesting. To follow our course, Admiral Cole's voice instructed. Ralvesh complied. The Terran warship turned slowly and began moving deeper into uncharted space. The flagship, after nearly an hour, they arrived at their destination, and Ralvesh's scales prickled at the sight. The Terran flagship was even larger than the ships he had seen before. Its hull stretched into the distance, bristling with weapons, defense grids, and strange antenna-like structures. The warship's hangar bay doors opened. Inside was a cavern large enough to hold a dozen of Ralvesh's cruisers. Docking sequence initiated, the computer announced. The Varith's spear was pulled gently into the hangar by invisible tractor beams. The precision was flawless. Meeting Admiral Ral Vesh stepped onto the hangar deck, flanked by two of his officers. The air was heavier than Trivarn norms, making each breath feel dense. The temperature was cool but not uncomfortable. Waiting for him was a tall, broad-shouldered human in a dark uniform. His hair was cut short, his eyes sharp and assessing. This was Admiral Cole. "Captain Ral Vesh," Cole said in that deep, controlled voice. "Welcome aboard the TNS Retribution." Ral Vesh inclined his head. "Your ship is impressive." Cole gave a faint smile. "It's one of many." He gestured for Ral Vesh to follow. They walked through corridors lined with reinforced plating, bulkheads sealed with heavy locks, and security stations manned by armed personnel. The soldiers wore the same matte black armor as the inspection team, their movements precise and disciplined. The history lesson Cole led Ral Vesh into a conference chamber. The walls were lined with holographic displays showing star maps, tactical overlays, and streams of encrypted data. "You want to know who we are?" Cole began. "We are the descendants of Earth. Centuries ago, we fought alongside the Galactic Council. Then they betrayed us. They thought they could wipe us out. They were wrong." Ral Vesh listened in silence. "We withdrew," Cole continued. "We hid. We rebuilt. And we swore that no one would ever threaten us again. That is why you haven't seen us. That is why you didn't know we existed. We don't need the galaxy to know where we are. We just need to know everything about the galaxy." Ral Vesh studied him. "And now? Why reveal yourselves?" Cole's eyes hardened. "Because threats are moving, and the galaxy is forgetting the balance of power. We are here to remind them." The warning before Ral Vesh could ask more, an alarm pulsed through the room. A human officer appeared in the doorway. "Sir, we have movement. Unidentified ships entering the perimeter." Cole stood, already in command mode. "Prepare the fleet. No one breaches the Terran defense zone." He turned to Ral Vesh. "You've seen our ships, Captain. Now you're going to see what they can do." The deck under Captain Ral Vesh's feet seemed to hum with quiet power as Admiral Cole strode out of the conference chamber. Ral Vesh followed, his Trivarn officers hurrying to keep up. The human flagship felt alive, its corridors pulsing with activity, soldiers and officers moving with purpose. There was no confusion, no wasted motion. Every crew member seemed to know exactly where to go and what to do. They reached the command bridge, a vast, high-ceilinged space filled with holographic displays and tactical stations. At the center, a huge forward viewport showed the darkness of space, now broken by a cluster of bright moving objects. "Enemy?" Ral Vesh asked quietly. "Unidentified," Cole replied. "But they've crossed the warning line," the intrusion a human officer reported. "Contacts are 8 ships. Configuration matches coalition border skirmishers. They're moving in. A tight wedge formation. Speed is increasing." Ral Vesh's brow furrowed. The coalition was a minor but aggressive power known for testing the limits of their neighbors' patience. If they had stumbled into this restricted zone, they had no idea what they were about to face. "Range to weapons?" Cole asked. 3 minutes, the weapons officer replied. "Hold fire," Cole ordered calmly. "Let them come closer." Ral Vesh tilted his head. "You're going to let them approach your flagship?" Cole gave him a sideways glance. "It's important they understand exactly where they are." The uncloaking without warning, the darkness beyond the viewport shimmered, just like the moment when Ral Vesh had first seen the second warship. But this time, it wasn't one ship that appeared. It was many, one by one. Enormous Terran warships peeled into view, surrounding the intruders from multiple angles. Some were smaller than the flagship, but most were still massive, 2 to 3 kilometers long, bristling with weaponry. Ral Vesh's mouth went dry. The scale of the fleet was staggering. If these were only the ships in this sector, how many more did Earth Command have hidden? The coalition ships slowed abruptly, their formation breaking. They had just realized they weren't facing an isolated target. The voice of Earth Cole turned to his comm officer. "Open a wideband channel to all intruder vessels." The officer nodded. A second later, Cole's voice boomed out, steady and cold. "This is Admiral Cole of Earth Command. You have entered a restricted defense zone. Your ships are surrounded, and every weapon in this sector is locked on you. You will power down your drives and weapons immediately. You have 10 seconds to comply." Ralvesh noted the lack of anger in Cole's tone. It wasn't a threat made in rage. It was simply a fact being delivered. Through the tactical display, they watched as the intruder ships hesitated. Then slowly, weapon systems powered down. Drives went to idle. "They understand," Cole said. A demonstration. Ralvesh thought it was over, but Cole turned to his gunnery officer. "Target the asteroid cluster at grid Delta 7. Full broadside, coordinated fire." The officer acknowledged. Out in space, the Terran fleet moved with frightening precision. Dozens of enormous cannons rotated in unison. Fire. The void. Lit up with blinding flashes. In the blink of an eye, the asteroid cluster, 3 kilometers wide, was obliterated, vaporized into a glowing cloud of dust and gas. No debris remained large enough to be dangerous. The display went dark again. Silence filled the bridge. Ralvesh swallowed hard. That wasn't just firepower, it was overkill. No Confederacy fleet could deliver that kind of destruction in a single volley. Cole looked at him. Now they know what would happen to their ships. The meeting. Cole ordered the intruders to leave at half speed, under escort. None dared to protest. As the coalition ships retreated, Cole invited Ralvesh to a private observation deck. The room's wide glass wall overlooked the Terran fleet, their black hulls gleaming faintly in starlight. "Do you understand now, Captain?" Cole asked quietly. Ralvesh nodded slowly. "You've built enough firepower to challenge the entire galaxy." "Not challenge," Cole corrected. "Defend. Earth learned the price of trust centuries ago. The Council betrayed us. Allies abandoned us. We will never be in that position again." Ralvesh studied the man. There was no boast in his voice, no need to exaggerate. Cole spoke like someone who had already fought and survived the worst war imaginable. A caution. "Why tell me this?" Ralvesh asked at last. "Because the galaxy is shifting," Cole said. "Factions are moving pieces on the board. Sooner or later, the Confederacy will face a choice: stay out of our way or choose a side. I'd rather you understand what choosing against us will mean." Ralvesh thought of the obliterated asteroid, of the fleet that had appeared from nowhere, of the way the intruders had folded under 10 seconds of warning. "I'll report what I've seen," he said carefully. "Do that," Cole replied. "Just be sure to tell the truth." Departure. The Varith Spear was escorted back to the border of the restricted zone by 2 Terran destroyers. Even these smaller ships dwarfed his cruiser. Before they parted ways, Cole's voice came one last time over the comm. "Captain, Ralvesh, Earth Command does not seek war. But if war finds us, it will end before it begins." Then the Terran ships peeled away, vanishing back into their shrouded sector. Ralvesh watched them disappear, the weight of what he had seen settling over him like a heavy cloak. He knew the High Command would want every detail. He also knew that no matter what they decided, the galaxy had just shifted in a way they couldn't yet measure. Back in Confederacy space, when Varith's Spear returned home, Ralvesh's report was met with disbelief, concern, and outright fear. Some in High Command thought he was exaggerating. Others believed every word and began to see Terran power as a threat to Confederacy security. A heated debate began. Should they try to open formal talks with Earth Command or quietly prepare for the possibility of conflict? Ralvesh listened to them argue, knowing that none of them truly understood what he had witnessed. Words and sensor logs could not capture the cold, precise menace of the Terran fleet, nor the calm certainty in Admiral Cole's voice. In the shadows far away, deep within the restricted zone, the TNS Retribution moved silently through the void. On its bridge, Cole stood looking out at the fleet. A young officer approached. "Sir, do you think they understood the message?" Cole's expression didn't change. "They understood enough. The rest will spread on its own." He turned back to the viewport. "The galaxy will remember Earth, one way or another." The journey back to Trivarn home space was unlike any patrol Captain Ral Vesh had ever experienced. The stars seemed brighter, the darkness of space more oppressive, and every minor blip on the sensor made the crew tense. Even though nothing moved near them, Ral Vesh could feel the weight of what they had encountered pressing down on the ship. For hours, he sat in silence on the bridge, staring at the endless void. His officers spoke little. Words seemed unnecessary after everything they had witnessed. High Command reaction. When Vareth's spear finally docked in orbit over Vireth, the news of Ral Vesh's encounter spread like wildfire through the halls of the Confederacy. High Command assembled immediately. Ral Vesh gave his full report. Every detail was included. The massive Terran warships, their untraceable technology, the calm and commanding tone of Admiral Cole, the effortless obliteration of the asteroid cluster, the peaceful but unmistakable message: leave or be destroyed. Some officers whispered about exaggeration, others stared, white-scaled and fearful, as Ral Vesh showed them sensor logs. Even then, the images could not capture the size or silent menace of the Terran fleet. High Admiral Saren Kor broke the tense silence. "If what you say is true, Captain, then the galaxy has just changed forever. Humanity has returned, and they are not the people we remember from old council records." Ral Vesh nodded. "They are stronger than anything we have ever faced. They are precise, disciplined, and patient. They will strike only when necessary." The debate, the Confederacy had never faced a threat of this scale. The idea that an unknown civilization could hide for centuries, rebuild, and return with such overwhelming force shook even the most confident admirals. Some argued that Ral Vesh should have requested diplomacy immediately. Others warned that any attempt to engage could lead to total annihilation. Ral Vesh sat quietly, listening to the arguments. The humans had not fired on them. They had not threatened the Confederacy directly. Yet the implicit warning was clear. Anyone entering Terran-controlled space without permission was risking everything. Finally, Admiral Ventar said, "We must assume Earth Command is watching. They will know every movement of our fleets. Any rash action could be catastrophic." Ral Vesh agreed silently. He understood now that the galaxy was no longer a place where the Confederacy could operate freely. Earth had returned as a hidden power, and they were not here to negotiate. They were here to remind everyone that power had consequences. Returning to routine? Days passed, and the crew tried to resume normal patrols. But nothing felt normal. Every star system scanned, every shipment inspected, every minor anomaly in space sensors reminded them of what was possible. Even minor space traffic reports were treated with caution. No one wanted to unknowingly provoke the Terran Defense Network. Ral Vesh kept a personal log of every observation. Every scan, every transmission, every subtle energy signature was recorded. It was a way to prepare, should the Terrans decide to make their presence felt again. A silent reminder. Weeks later, a minor disturbance appeared in an uncharted sector. Pirates had set up a hidden base near a small gas giant. Ral Vesh and his crew moved cautiously to investigate. When they arrived, they found the base abandoned. No ships, no signs of life. But floating above the planet, a single Terran observation drone shimmered into view. It hovered silently, unarmed, as if to say, "We are watching." Ral Vesh's crew understood immediately. This was not a threat. It was a reminder. Humanity was patient, precise, and omnipresent when they chose to be. Political ripples back at the council, news of the Terran fleet spread quickly. Historians, diplomats, and spies scrambled to find records. Some dismissed it as a bluff, a clever trick of old legends and modern technology. Others panicked. Entire council sectors began quietly preparing defenses, unsure of where or when humanity might appear next. The sudden return of Earth had upset the balance of power. Ral Vesh watched the ripple effects with quiet concern. He knew the Confederacy would need to move carefully, making every decision based on careful observation rather than pride or fear. Personal reflection alone in his quarters, Ral Vesh stared at a display of the star field outside. He thought of Admiral Cole's words. "We do not seek war, but if war finds us, it will end before it begins." There was a weight in those words, a truth that he could not ignore. The humans had survived betrayal, vanished, and returned stronger than any records had suggested. They were patient, disciplined, and aware. Every move in the galaxy would now be measured against their potential response. Ral Vesh realized that in a very real sense the humans had already won, not by firing a single shot, but by making the galaxy remember they existed. The Confederacy's new reality. When the patrol resumed, Ral Vesh's crew remained on high alert. Even the routine now felt like a delicate dance. Every signal was checked twice. Every unexplored sector scanned carefully. The Confederacy had survived countless wars, but now they faced a civilization that played by rules no one fully understood. A civilization that had returned from the shadows, quiet, unyielding, and supremely confident. And somewhere in the depths of space, Earth Command waited, silent, watching, and ready. The final message, before leaving the restricted zone completely, Ral Vesh received a final encrypted message from Admiral Cole. "Captain Ral Vesh, you have reported truthfully. The galaxy will remember this encounter. Remember, strength is nothing without restraint. Humanity will observe. Choose your actions wisely." Ral Vesh stared at the comm for a long time. He knew he would carry this warning for the rest of his life. And he knew that the galaxy had changed forever. Silent departure. The humans had not attacked. They had not demanded allegiance. They had simply made themselves known, and the shockwave was already spreading as Vareth's spear returned fully to Trivarn space. Ral Vesh looked out at the stars. Somewhere in the blackness, the Terran fleet waited, silent and unyielding. The galaxy had a new power to reckon with, and it had just reminded everyone that it existed. For the first time in centuries, the Confederacy and the rest of the galaxy understood. A simple truth: some forces were better left undisturbed. The silent departure of the Terran fleet was not an ending. It was a warning. This completes your 5-part HFY Sci-Fi story in third-person, simple English, around 1,500 words per part, engaging and violation-free. If you want, I can also create a short story version combining all 5 parts into one seamless, 7,000, 8,000 word story ready for reading. It will flow like a novel with smooth transitions between the parts. Do you want me to do that?